Well, welcome to the first ever Brent and the Boys podcast.
Let's go.
I knew I was being watched, so I didn't show up.
Man, I didn't even know you existed.
Oh, that's not true.
All I knew is that maybe I like this guy. The next thing I know, I'm sitting at Starbucks. He's like, we all deal with stuff, and tomorrow's problems are going to be different than today's problems, but you're still going to have problems,
right?
And you're still going to have to make a choice. Am I going to turn to God, or am I going to turn to reacting out of my flesh and all those kinds of things? And
Taylor Swift taking over my football Sunday is really ruining my day, if I'm being honest with you. I don't watch football to watch Taylor Swift, you know what I mean?
Give me any thoughts on that?
spiritual abomination.
Oh, there it is. Spiritual abomination. We need to cut this. This is not good. Start it over. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Brent and the Boys. We're glad you are watching or listening to wherever you're listening. We're just glad you're here. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful day, wherever you may find yourself. We're glad you're here. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
I'm excited to be here.
Wow.
It feels good.
It's been weeks, you know. We take our time with it. It's all right, though. Wait for the things to happen.
Some schedule issues.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. But hey, before I jump in, obviously,
which means I'm coming in hot today.
Jesus, let me introduce. This is Rob, who's coming in hot today. Rob Asher joining me, and also the reason you tuned in today.
Yes,
the one and only Brent of Brent and the Boys, Pastor Brent Sparks.
Wow.
Man, I need to get this thing working so I can make some noise, bro.
I'm
get
reaching over pushing buttons.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're glad you're here. We're excited. It's going to be a great time. I got some great questions to start on hot takes, but want to let you know that you can submit a hot take. We do have an email, BrentandTheBoys@EncounterOnline.com. We do have people that have sent in questions. Some are great. Some are, sometimes we don't use them. Apologies. But please send them in. They're great conversation starters for us and just things that we like to answer. So we're going to start with an easy one. If you gentlemen want to have your phone close to you, my first question for hot takes today is, what is your top 3 used emojis?
Interesting.
What if you only have 3?
Well, there you go. It's going to be drastically different. I was talking to Garrison, super producer, who couldn't be with us today, but he will be back with us in the future. He's just sitting in the corner right now.
I think I literally have 4. I think literally I have the laughy face, the clap your hands, the praying hands, the roll your eyes, which was one of my favorites, and the dude with the eyes that are bugged out. What? That's pretty much it.
Rob, what's your favorite?
Skull and crossbones.
Stop.
Oh, dude, because when I think something's funny, it's
you
just
go dead. Yeah.
The crying eyes, and then the fire emoji, obviously.
The crying eyes, like it's so
not
funny.
Sad, like funny, like the laughing crying.
I was about to say, I'm like, what? You crying lately?
No,
man?
no.
Okay?
Yeah.
My favorite one is a salute. I pretty much respond always with the salute.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, I don't know why.
That is kind of your thumbs up.
Yeah. My thumbs up is like, I got it. What was my other ones? Praise hands, and then the laughing one. I think that's, but like there's a laughing one, then there's like an extra laughing one. There's a lot of options you have, but you know, all right, just curious.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Good job, guys. Wow. Really, really proud of us.
That was quick.
Yeah, that's why I have like 10 of these, because we move very fast to these hot takes. This is a great one. We're actually just talking about this before you guys walked in. Garrison had a small group, and so we were talking, and I'm curious, what have you guys heard that people think that we as pastors do throughout the week at church?
Oh.
What have you heard that people think? Because I've gotten times where people walked up to me like, so what do you like do around here? And I'm like, what do you mean?
That is my favorite, is like the dead serious, deadpan. Like,
they're dead serious.
Like you guys work in the office?
Yeah.
We're like, yes. And they're like, oh.
What do you do?
Y'all actually have a job?
No, walk around singing holy, holy, holy all day long. And
that's it.
I mean, people probably think I legit just play guitar all day.
I think people, the stigma for the older crowd is definitely golf. I feel like people just assume that pastors just play golf all day, every day.
All day, every day.
I did.
Yeah.
We're just trying to intervention. Really,
that's
what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
it's golf or it's pickleball at this point.
Golf or pickleball. That's all we do.
Counter staff has become a big a pickleball staff.
Big pickleball staff. That's great.
It's
that's for sure. I mean,
I don't know if you guys have, like, anyone else has said anything to you guys like, what do you?
I think the general stigma is that you write like that. All that you do, depending on what ministry you're in, is like you either write one sermon a week,
Right.
or you practice your guitar to sing one song a week.
Well,
I think that's kind of the general consensus.
all it is.
It is over the years. I think what Rob has said. I've had people approach me many times like, "Is there enough to y'all work full time? There's enough to do throughout the week." And I'm like, you know, I just want, first of all, you just want to kick them right in the head. And then
He said it, not me.
Don't I'll say it. I'll say it again. I want to kick you right in the head. You know, because
trying to get
I
out
mean,
the cancel.
they
But
forget
same.
this is an organization of 1,500 people.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's I mean, and we're involved in the lives of so many people, and all the things. What they forget is that we really are on 24/7.
24/7.
My phone is never off, and it can't be off because there's many times I get the phone calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We need you now, you know, and people, I don't understand why people don't get that, but for some reason they don't.
I think people just think, like, they lose sight of that for most people, and this isn't a rebuke of the church by any or counter church
Go
or any
ahead, Rob,
church.
please.
No,
Just
but
the church in general.
no,
yeah,
but
really.
I think it's the general thought is like church is one day a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what the consensus is,
100%.
and it's not. It's a fully operating every day.
Like we have things rolling out all the time, events,
sure.
like
For sure.
youth's cranking during the week, like
Awesome.
And if you're in the church world, you know this. But if you're just watching and you attend church, like, it's the joke in the church world is that, like, oh, Easter just finished. How many weeks are we out till Christmas?
Yeah.
Because, like, those are the two most attended. So, like, in all seriousness, planning and prepping for those moments and other conferences and things that we have coming up, that's a year-long process.
Yeah, and they
that we're
don't
planning
even
for.
understand. I mean, take what we did at Easter this year, which I thought was one of our better Easters that we've done, and I think we've always done a great job, but I think it was one of our better ones. I mean, they don't understand. That's 3, 4, 5 months of planning,
Easily.
you know, that we've got going on, and even like right now with our upcoming At the Movie series in July. Well, that's a 6 to 8 month plan that nobody knows.
supposed to be a 6 to 8 month plan.
Yeah, exactly.
We've pulled it off in far less.
We pulled it off in 2 weeks.
I'll
but,
pray for Garrison,
No,
super
just kidding.
producer.
Super
But
producer's dead.
I mean, we really do. You have to start planning those things out for months and months
yeah.
and months, you know, because of just everything that it takes to get done, you know, on that stuff. And people don't realize, you know, just like with what we're doing right now with Encounter Stories, how much work it is for Garrison and his team to come in and meet with those guys and then take all that material and bring it down to 10 to 12 minutes, you know, to where it actually is as phenomenal as it is. And big props to super producer for the amazing job that he does, man. It's
Wow.
quite amazing.
That's
the
like
job
his
he
5th
does.
compliment today. Are you all right over there?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're getting too serious. Let's back it up just a little bit. So, in this regard of people who think of what we do, the question is, if you had to choose a career all over again, what would you do?
All over again.
If you had to choose a career all over again, obviously you can't go back into ministry. I know everyone's right answer is like, no, ministry's who I am.
It wasn't a job; it was a calling.
That's right. So are you asking would I do ministry over again, or if I did something
No,
different,
no. If you
what
did
would I
something
do?
different, what would you? You can't choose
Okay, I
ministry. You
can't
got to
choose
choose a
ministry.
different career.
Without question, for me, it would have been the medical field. I was already headed
Yep,
in that
that's right.
direction and have several years of a degree toward that, which I didn't finish out, but absolutely would have been in the medical profession, you know, as an RN paramedic, you know, something like that. I would have done something along those lines.
Yep.
Maybe gotten to a PA or whatever.
Yeah.
So
What about you, G?
I was gonna say country singer, but my country name is Garrett James.
Garrett
Drop the
James.
sermon.
Be looking for him.
Baby, lock them doors. I'm just kidding. Funny enough, this is hilarious, but I really, really enjoyed the. It sounds funny, architecture. Like architect designing buildings. I had like an app on my computer that I would like mess with growing up, and I like loved it. So I don't know. I feel like that might have been. You know, the creative me want to build
could have
something
been a lot
weird.
richer.
Could have made a lot more money right now, but you know, it's fine. I'll go back to country singer Garrett James. Check me out. Dropping my next hit.
That's it.
Rob, what you got?
Probably. I think probably if I had to pick something else, it would probably be college football coach.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have been
Coach.
coaching or in the administrative side, but like when I look at especially my roommates and like best friends from college, 2 of them are coaches, 2 of them are strength coaches in the collegiate football
cool.
world. So like my friend group for sure, definitely like
Kept to that.
kind of stayed in the sports world, and I have a feeling I probably I don't know if high school, looking back on it now, would have been the route I would have done. I mean, college coaching can be crazy with a family and all that, but like I said, that's where my friend group ended up, and I have a feeling I probably would have followed suit.
Yeah, that seems about right for you. I like that. It's good, man. Well, another question before we get to the last and final question, which is I'm very curious. But before that question, what is, in y'all's opinion, the perfect age? The perfect age.
Just in
general. Yeah. What do you feel like is the perfect age? Kind of a thinker.
Man, there's layers
I know
to
it's
that.
subjective.
There's layers
Try
to
not
that.
to get too don't try and peel the onion too much.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, like, honestly, I really like, now it's biasy because I haven't experienced anything past this, but I really think 30 for me, only because like the 20s is so much, your 20s are so
Like discovery.
chaotic.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure it out, trying to get if you're on top of your game, you're like trying to figure out how to like make money and be professional.
Sure.
If you're not on top of your game, you're still trying to figure out
You're
what the
like,
heck
what
you're
am I
going to
doing
do with
with
your
my
life. But it's this whole journey, and
It's 30.
and I do feel like the beginning of your 30s of like you did the hard work of figuring it out in your 20s
For sure.
and you get to live in like, hopefully if it goes somewhat right, you're getting to live in like the fruitfulness
You get
of
to dig into
the
what you
hard
worked
work
hard
you
for.
put in your
Yeah.
20s to like, now you own a home, you have a family,
Right.
you've got married, and hopefully it's a healthy marriage, like, and so you're living in the benefit of some of that,
Yeah.
hopefully living out the best years,
Yeah.
if you will, of that phase of life.
Absolutely. Wise pastor
You guys
of
are young
many
and
years.
dumb. Young and dumb. 30, yeah. So I do agree. 30 was a good season, but your best season, I promise you,
Your best life.
Your best life is in front of you when you hit your late 40s and early to mid 50s, when you actually got money to do anything
Hey.
you want to do,
You know.
and you ain't got no kids there to
Wow.
tell you, to pull you this way or to pull you that way. You've done all of that stuff.
through
You've got
it
them
all.
out of college. They're doing their own thing. I'm telling you,
see
the
that.
empty nester season is a great season because I can go get anything I want to get. I don't have to worry about it. If I want to go get,
I feel like the really reason, like, and I don't know because I'm not. That's the hard part of
I
this
know,
question,
I
right?
know.
Like you don't
Well, we
know
got
what you don't know.
Great placements here.
That's why,
But I
experience.
feel like the only thing I would use to maybe combat that is like the stigma is you get to a certain point in life and like movies and television make it seem as if that age is like you lost the sense of adventure.
Sure.
And I'm like,
Have you lost your
30
sense of adventure?
no, do I look like I've lost my sense of adventure?
I think you might be the rarity.
I would agree with that.
I
I'm
don't
with
think
that.
you're the norm.
I don't think you're
I
normal
think-
either.
Are you kidding me?
How many?
All your friends are
Let's think in
doing
the
what you're
church world.
doing.
How many
I don't
people that
care.
are your age
Well,
are
like,
like,
that's
I
why
don't
you're the
know.
rarity.
I don't know. I just
you're still on the incline. I think most are
I am
taking
not.
that steep
No, you're
jump.
not an
You're
incline.
not.
No, you're the
Yeah,
rarity.
You're still going up.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
yeah.
We think.
I mean, I
praying
don't
about
know.
it. I don't know. but in all seriousness, if that's the case, I still want to have a sense of adventure and still
Sure.
want to like be conquering something, doing something.
Yeah, I like that.
It is nice to, because you're right. Old is just a mentality. That's all it is, for real. It is just a mentality.
start
If you
there.
start
Yeah.
thinking, if you start thinking you're old, you're old. I don't think I'm old. I still think I'm 20. My body tries to tell me differently, but I still think I'm 20. And and I'm out doing stuff all the time. But I really, seriously, right now is probably the most fun, as far as, and I'm talking about just personally, I'm not talking about, because
Oh,
we
yeah.
loved our kids, loved raising our kids, all
Sure,
those things.
sure.
But I'm talking about just personally, probably the most fun time that Terry and I have had, just because, like I said, I mean, we got plenty of money to do what we want. If we want to travel, we travel.
Yeah.
If we want to go out to eat, we go out to eat. If we want to go buy this, we go buy that. Whatever the case may be, just because all the responsibilities that we've had for the last
Man's got Honeycrisp in his office.
Oh, God, he's
That's
pouring
right.
Fruity Pebbles
God,
every
Come on,
morning.
man, that's right. Fruity Pebbles and grape nuts.
I love hanging with Boomer and Yaya. You know what I mean?
right.
It's just a great time.
That's right. So, but yeah.
I want to dive in on it, but I do have one more question. We'll get back to
Okay,
the better at 70 mentality. You know what I mean? I think it's a good mentality to get into. Last question before we dive into what's already just naturally coming, and hopefully this gets our staff to kind of watch Brent and the boys a little bit more. But who is the funniest staff member at Encounter Church?
Man.
Funniest staff member at Encounter Church.
And maybe give us a why.
There's layers to that.
There's layers to everything today. That was the final question of Hot Takes.
God.
Who is the funniest staff member? And we'll tell them that to watch Brent and the Boys to find out.
Funniest staff member.
I think that there's a subjectivity to this because like there's like funniest and then there's like who makes me laugh the most, which isn't necessarily the funniest, but like, and are we laughing at or with? Like,
I feel that.
But man,
the funniest staff member.
That's kind of tough.
the most out of pocket is Kobe. Like I think there's no question. Kobe is the craziest staff member.
Absolutely.
He lives out the stereotypical youth pastor position.
That's accurate.
To the best.
I agree with that.
Jacob is a good counterpart in Orange County, so I think our youth is funny.
All right.
Honestly, who makes me laugh? I don't know if it's the funniest.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Makes me, Garrison makes me laugh the most. When that dude, they do
when
some
Garrison
stuff.
gets going Alabama style, my God, I roll over and die. This man says some hilarious things that we won't share online or anything, but they're hilarious. The Alabama.
The Floribama comes out in a minute, boy.
My Lord. If you've ever experienced super producer, roll Tide roll.
Roll Tide Willie over here gets it going, son.
Todd Willie.
This man wanted to get a tattoo on his stomach that said well fed. That makes me die, bro.
Yeah, Garrison,
Garrison, you might take the cake, bro. I gotta be honest. I'm with you on that. It's between you and Kobe for me.
There's nobody that'll take his shirt off quicker than
I'm telling you, he makes me like. I don't know if he's the funniest, but he definitely, I think, makes me laugh the most.
Man.
You can't take Ingalls out of this either, though.
I agree.
Ingalls is kind of dry funny.
He is, and it comes out of nowhere.
It just comes out of nowhere.
I actually
can't
think
take Ingalls
more
out,
jokes
so.
you know why Jacob Melanson can't be considered in this conversation is because he's the biggest
Jacob.
joke thief. Caleb King and Nathan Ingalls have supplied Jacob Melanson with more quality jokes,
Wow.
but he's the face of them because he'll say them.
He'll
they
say
just
them.
whisper them, and
That is true.
They're his joke
King,
writers.
it's time to speak louder. Your jokes are funny.
Caleb, we need to hear.
We
from
need
you.
to hear. He sends it off to the side, and then someone
And then
takes
Jacob
it.
just
Bro,
takes
I've
it.
seen
It's
that
true.
every time.
It's true.
Oh man,
Funny.
That's funny. So who's your Ingalls is your guy, or
I just don't think you can take Ingalls out. I agree with everything you guys have said about all these other guys too. I just wanted to throw Ingalls in the mix because Ingalls is so
respect
he's
that.
just
Don't
dry.
disagree.
He's dry funny, and it's like you said, it just comes out of nowhere. So yeah.
wow, amazing. I love it. Well, sweet. Well, that's hot takes for us for Brent and the Boys. If you want your hot take,
At least we just don't
answered.
have one guy.
That's true. We have one funny guy.
Look at that one guy.
He says those one
We have
jokes every
several
once in a
guys.
while.
We actually have fun because we don't do nothing but sit around and tell jokes. That's
true.
all we do.
That
right?
is all we do. We just tell jokes
it.
around here. So,
right.
anyways, send in your
If
questions.
you'd like to join our staff, you can apply.
We actually have a criteria. You got to make us laugh at least once or
That's
twice
exactly
during your
right.
interview. Oh man,
It's true. There have been staff members that we've come in for interviews that didn't make it because they didn't make us laugh.
They aren't
I
funny.
mean, laugh is a core value
It
of
is a
our
core
staff
value.
culture, right, Rob? So,
Exactly right.
gotta make them give shout outs for laughing.
100%.
That's hilarious. I cannot. Well, I want to. All right, so get back to this. Maybe I'm not sure how to frame this question, but I've heard this a lot by a couple of different pastors of like the mentality of like better at 70, and the idea of like when I'm older, I want to be even better than I am when what people think is prime 30, 40s, 50s kind of thing like that. Maybe I don't know if there's some things that come to mind of like that mentality, but like you said, like you're living your best life unashamedly and you're doing all the things you want to do. But I do think there's a rarity there because I think when people get to a certain age, they think they've peaked and they've declined because they think they can't do what the 20 and 30-year-olds that are doing. And so maybe speak to how do you encourage someone to like, hey, age is but a number. It's a mentality. How do you keep the mentality of like, I'm going to continue to dream? Because we've sat in plenty of meetings with you, like I'm dreaming bigger dreams that I've ever dreamed at the age I'm at now versus when I was 20 and 30, when I was encouraged to dream big. And I think that's a model that we take here at the church as well of like, man, dream courageous. We prayed it this morning. Like you got to pray these massive prayers. Like ask the Lord, like, but I think how have you kept that mentality at the age you are now versus like the younger times where like you have huge dreams, but you're like, no, I'm dreaming even bigger right now because I know God can do it.
Yeah.
And you have the experience of that. But what does that look like for you of keeping that mentality?
Well, I think it's like I said a while ago, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
You cannot think old. You know, I think a lot of guys that get my age, I'm 55, so a lot of guys that get my age and, you know, and a little higher, of course, they start thinking retirement. And when you start thinking retirement, everything in you begins to start, you know, and I'm not saying this about everybody, but for a lot of people, everything begins to kind of kick almost in reverse gear, you know, because I've done all this and I've done all this and I've done all this, and now I'm just not going to do anything, you know, kind of thing. And I think honestly, it's one of the advantages to being in ministry because, you know, just as Rob said, even though I was kind of joking a few moments ago about it, the calling on our lives is not something that's revoked. It's not something that we put into retirement. That calling is going to be something that's part of my life until I die. And so I'm constantly thinking ahead. I'm constantly thinking about, you know, what I can do, where I can go, how I can do it, how I can make impact, you know, all of those things. And I just think as long as you keep your mindset there and you keep it moving, you know, that way, and you're not in this process of I'm trying to reach a goal, and when I reach out that goal, I'm going to do nothing. Right. And I think that's where majority of people are. Because it's like, I'm trying to reach this certain age, and when I get there, I'm going to do nothing. I'm never going to get up again. I'm never going to do well. That mentality, absolutely, and that's why you see a lot of guys in the context where you got to sit, they start doing this really quickly. You know, their body begins to deteriorate, all those kinds of things, and it's because of how they think. They think about themselves, and so I just think you've got to just really keep your mindset right. You can't think you're getting old, even though, you know, there's no question at 55 I feel things much differently than I felt them when I was 25, but I'm still doing the same stuff I did when I was 25. You know, I'm still out playing pickleball, tennis, whatever, golf. It doesn't matter. I'm out doing it, you know, and I just think as long as you keep that mindset, you're okay. But boy, if it ever shifts up here, you're in trouble. You know, on this
Rob,
side.
what are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously at the age, I'm 35 now, but like all this to look forward to, and even for me as well, obviously I'm 29, but
for me, it's
on mentality.
I think the mentality I have now that I want to keep, that I think will continue, barring obviously some catastrophic failure on my part, is every year gets better because you're doing the hard work every year to like try to improve and all that. And then hopefully if you work hard enough and improve, you're getting to live in the benefit or the fruit of like the hard work you put in previously. And so for me, like my 30s have been so much better than my 20s. And I would say the same thing. Like somebody made the comment the other day and we're like, oh man, if I could just go back to high school. I'm like, are you high? That's crazy to talk for me. Like I would never want to go back. Life is so much more enjoyable now. And I think in the same way, if ironically, I think it's more enjoyable now, but it's harder now. I have way more challenges, both financial and kids and crazy schedule but it's the wins are, the highs are higher and the lows aren't as low as they used to be. And I think in a spiritual context too, the more you get to know God, the greater your faith increases and the more you can believe for, which means that like I trust God at a different level than I did 10 years ago. And I think if you were to multiply that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you get to that better at 70 and you go, no, I'm believing for God for more now than ever because I've walked with him faithfully for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Huge, dude.
And so, and just watching, I mean, PB and with Eden and then my parents and getting to see them like the joys of getting to watch the hard work you put in with your kids now be multiplied.
So cool.
I think it's really cool. And so I do think there's a lot to look forward to. As much as we joke and hot takes, I do think.
The other side of that too is just when you're talking about dreaming and all these kinds of things, I'm at a place of maturity and wisdom where I can handle those dreams that I have now.
That's good.
And I wasn't back when I was 17, 18, 19, when I had some of the visions that God gave me. Well, some of them have come to pass, but some of them haven't. And there's not a chance what some of God put in me at 17 years old I could have done before even now. Right. And so there's just maturity and wisdom that comes with that. And so you're at a place now to where you know, as you continue, like Rob was saying, you continue to grow and you continue to mature and get wiser, you know, you get to that point where you're dreaming, and the dreams that you're actually dreaming, you know, you really feel like, hey, I'm at a place where I could handle that and it not destroy me.
Yeah.
Right. And God could actually do this through me. And so, I'm telling you, it really is. I mean, even yesterday, I was thinking about some things. One of the, and it just made me kind of think a guy that has been very, you know, pivotal in my life, you know, from a distance, a mentor, okay, and just completely from a distance, passed away yesterday. And so as I'm seeing that, you know, I really began to think, I thought, okay, well, who's going to step up and take his place? Who's going to step into that role? You know, and so I began to dream about that. You know, I began, just for me personally, I began to dream. I thought, man, wouldn't it be great to be able to step into this? And, you know, but as we talk about all these things, and we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, you know, you got to have, you can have all the dreams you want. There's got to be some plans toward that. So you just got to step toward it. You know, if you just start stepping toward it, you know, just like talking about writing a book. Well, you're never going to write a book if you don't write. Right. You got to start writing something, you know, in order to do that. And so it's just some of these things I'm thinking about, okay, how can I start stepping toward this? How can I start moving toward this? And Terry and I, really and truly, we're probably dreaming as much right now as we have ever in our entire marriage or ministry about the great things that God is going to do, and that we're pursuing. And I just think that, you know, maturity and wisdom kind of brings a lot of that, you know, to us in a way that we didn't have in our 20s and 30s.
Right.
I also think there's the every year I get older, and this is something that does excite me about like kind of the better at 70 mentality, is that like every year I get older, I feel like I take more time to stop and smell the flowers. Doesn't mean that I'm not ambitious. I'm probably more ambitious now than I've ever. I have like these dreams and goals that I'm like, I want to go conquer the world in a certain sense. But I think I also, having kids has like brought this sense of like, no, I want to appreciate these moments. Watching Barrett, who's 3 now and looks like a 5-year-old, I'm like, oh, like there's a day coming where he's not going to want me to pick him up and hold him and read a book. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm like, every chance I get, I'm like, oh, I'm capital. And I think I can, and then I watch, like I said, the grandparents that are in our lives and my own parents with my kids. I'm like, and they'll do anything and drop everything to just sit there for 10 minutes and have a moment with my son. And I'm like, oh, there's this sweet sense of like, I feel this moment and I'm appreciating this moment that I think is getting better with age. It wasn't there at 18. No one stops to smell the flowers. It's go. And I'm starting to appreciate that more, and it excites me for another 30 years of what that could look like. Yeah,
I love it. I think the question I'm trying to kind of formalize in my head is like, so you've got all these years and you're dreaming and you're dreaming and dreaming and dreaming. How do you, I guess, maybe stay faithful in the in-between of like, maybe you saw something come to pass at this age and then you still haven't seen what you're looking for, but you are believing even greater now than ever before. What maybe some practical things of like, what were you doing in the in-between that kept you full of faith and encouraged you to like, no, God's going to still see me through? And even Rob, you mentioned of like, I've seen God, it's like, I've seen God do all these amazing things. So why wouldn't he continue to do what he said that he does as I remain faithful, as I remain, you know, trusting in him as he does those things? Hopefully this question makes sense. But what are you doing in the in-between between the things that have come to pass of like, all right, Lord, like you've done this, but I'm believing even greater and greater and greater. What were maybe some practical things that you encourage yourself with or challenge yourself with, knowing that you haven't seen some of the fulfillment just yet at the age you're at now? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. You know, in the context, and I don't ever talk about what God showed me when I was 17. Yeah. There's only very few people that know what I actually saw in a vision when I was 17 years old. And I just have to keep it in front of me, you know, and I'm going to tell you there have been seasons of my life that it wasn't. And many times over the years in prayer, at some point, God will he'll just remind me, hey, I don't want you to forget about this. That's cool. You know, and I would be like, and I literally at times would question like, God, I mean, how is that really? And the issue is not about how, and in fact, that's probably the greatest question I can ask, only because it just means that there's not a chance it's going to happen without God. Wow. Right. Yeah. And so I've just, God has just many times reminded me, hey, I don't want you to give up on this. I don't want you to give up on this. I don't want you to give up on this. And in fact, I've even thought, you know, at times I thought, well, maybe it's going to come through the generation behind me. And just, I mean, actually just months ago, it's not been very long ago, I was praying one day and God said, he just reminded me, he said, what I showed you at 17 was not meant for the generation behind you. It was meant for you. You know, and because I had almost kind of settled in myself that maybe God's going to do that through Caitlin and Garrett, to be honest with you. Maybe that's going to happen there, and somehow I get connected to that. But I really felt like he said no. He said it's not that, and it's not that he's not going to do great things with you guys, because I know he's going to.
Yeah, back off our dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not inserting myself in nothing, dog.
Yeah. But that he said that what I gave you at 17 was for you, and I don't want you to give up on that. I want you to keep believing for that, and so that's exactly what I'm doing. But I have to keep it in front of me. That's why, as we've even talked about, I think on these podcasts at some point, you know, these vision boards, you know, that Terry teaches our women about, that are so great, you know. Because it does keep it in front of you, you know, those kinds of things. You know, I've got one in my office about, you know, things for the church that we're believing for in the church. And that when I walk in, I see that thing every time I walk in about some things that are just big dreams that I've got for the church, you know, just to keep it in front of me so that my mind, you know, because with everything that goes on in our lives and can happen to every one of us, we can get overwhelmed with life. We get overwhelmed with schedules, whatever the case may be. And the last thing we're thinking about is the future. The last thing we're thinking about is dreams. And I think that's why you've got to do something to make sure that stuff, whatever it is, stays in front of you, so you don't forget about it, and you're constantly speaking life into it. Because when I see that vision board, whether it be the one in Terry's office at home or whether it be the one in my office here at the church, you know, when I see it immediately, God, I just believe for that in the name of Jesus, you know, and you just start speaking life into it. So I just think you got to keep it in front of you. I think there are going to be times, because here's the deal: a lot of times we think, and I thought at 17 years old, I would have thought all that stuff was already going to be said and done, you know, because I mean, that's a long time ago, 17, you know, when I was 17 years old. And yet, but like I said, here I am with some of that having been accomplished, but not the fulfillment of it. And, but again, like I said, there's no way I could have handled it maturity wise, you know, probably even 5 to 7 years ago, you know, compared to where I'm at now. Now it would, like I said, now if God was able to do what I saw at 17, it would not destroy me. You know, it would not, you know, because it's so big and it's so beyond anything Brent could do, that, you know, you just have to be at a place where you can handle that, you know, on that side of it. So
I love it. Yeah. I think within that, I don't know if I've answered this question or not, but I think it's good for this kind of theme. So you're dreaming big and you're keeping things in front of you. How do you continue to crush the present and be the best you can in the present moment that you are now, but also dreaming and keeping those bigger dreams in front of you? How do you not lose sight of the present when you have focus on the future, when you have your thoughts on this, and you're always dreaming about, all right, Lord, like only you can do this, but this is such a futuristic thing. How do you keep your mindset present in the current place you're at, but you know, I've got these dreams for X, Y, and Z? That makes sense.
Well, I think you've just got to do what we all know to do. You just have to stay faithful. You have to stay faithful in your everyday relationship with God. You've got to stay faithful in those things that you know you're believing for, that you're moving toward, that you're stepping every day. Every day you need to be trying to take a step toward, you know, what that is, right? And so, but again, you got to have a plan. You know, you need a plan on that. What is my plan to reach this, whatever this is, and that I've got a plan to where every day at least I'm trying to move something toward that, you know, on that side. But you know, there's a scripture that when you're talking about came to mind, and it was I can't remember where it's at. It was about David though, and it's actually when David got in trouble with Bathsheba. Because the Bible says this, it was in the season that kings were at war, and David was at home. Okay, so in essence what it was saying is David should have been out with his army. Wow. He should have been out doing what David was supposed to be doing, but instead David didn't go with the army, and he stayed home, and he walks out on his roof and he sees Bathsheba taking a bath, and then the rest is history, right? And he finds himself in a world of mess. Why? Because he wasn't doing what he should have been doing. He wasn't doing just the basic things. And I think that where dreams and stuff like that are concerned, that when we don't just do the basic things every day. And as monotonous as, you know, sometimes people think reading their Bible is, praying is, and all those kinds of things, those things are so very, very important, okay, in your life, that you just, this is a consistent thing, a disciplined thing that I do in my life, whether I feel anything or not. I am doing this every day of my life. And that faithfulness constantly keeps you moving toward that thing.
Right.
And then when temptation comes, because it's going to come, you're not like David, you're not pulled away to something that's completely meant to divert you away from what God has for you. But because you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're where you're supposed to be. Right. Even though you may not want to be there. Yeah. You're where you're supposed to be because you do what you're supposed to do. You stay on track and you don't get diverted because you're outside of that. Right. And I think that's just what happens a lot of times with people. They get diverted from what God's trying to do because they quit just the basic being faithful. Why? Because I've given up on this. This should have happened already. I can't believe it hasn't happened. I've been believing 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, so subtract 17 from 55 and you know how long I've been believing for something. Right. And I'm telling you, you just, exactly.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
And so you just can't give up on it, but you got to stay faithful, faithful, and be where you're supposed to be.
That's huge.
I think the verse that came to mind for me in the story is Abraham, and you've taught on this, I know, but I think the way that it's translated is that Abraham, when it comes to his faith for having a child, even as he got older, was that he was fully persuaded. He was fully convinced that there was nothing in him that was going to cause him to stop believing that. And so in the waiting, in the in-between, what do you do? And what have I trying to learn to do more faithfully? And I think this is where the wisdom of someone older, I really believe, like, they've learned to live in that in between longer. Right. And in that in between, you either have a choice, and you see this. And I think this is the like Pastor Brent said earlier, even when it comes to like your physicality, like you're either going to like make a decision though. Am I going to continue to believe? Am I going to continue to do it? Or am I going to stop believing? Or am I going to stop doing it? And like, it's funny, like the Masters was this weekend. And so my social media was just filled with golf content because that's all I looked up. But there was a quote that popped up by Gary Player, and they did like a profile on him. And Gary Player's an older man who was a great golfer back in the day, and is one of the ambassadors of golf, basically. Right. And he showed that even at his age, he gets on the treadmill every day and does like this big warm up on the treadmill. And they said, "Why do you do this?" He said, "Because you either keep moving or you die." And I was like, and I think spiritually speaking, right? Like, what do you do in the in-between? You keep moving or you die. That's it. And you let the dream die. And I've just gotten to a place where I'm fully convinced, like Pastor Brent's saying, like, I believe that the dreams God's given me and the words God's spoken to me are going to come to pass, and I'm going to keep moving, and I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
So
come on, dude.
Just keep moving.
I love it. What, a couple more questions on this theme. I love it. In the in-between, how, and maybe, you know, obviously with your experience in life, like, how have you kept the joy of the discipline and the consistency? Because you're right, like you said, it can get kind of mundane and kind of get monotonous, and you're kind of doing over and over again. Like, where were those moments? Because even those who are like questioning, they're discouraged, you know, whatever age you are listening to this, you're like, man, I feel like I'm in the in-between, or the waiting game, if you will. Like, how do I keep the joy and excitement that from the first time God spoke to when it actually took place? You know, you read the Bible and there's plenty of gap years of like, from God spoke to God's fulfillment. How do you keep the joy in the process and the pain? Because the reality is there's what's the word I'm looking for? There's there's refinement in those times. So how do you keep that joy when you know the Lord's trying to work some things through you before you can, like you said, ready to receive all that God wants you to do from the word that it was spoken to the fulfillment of it? What does that in between look like as far as the joy that you need to have?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that I had done this right my whole life, but I mean, I haven't. You know, there's definitely been seasons where I was so frustrated with God that I was just like, God, what's going on? And you know, and I get into that season where I'm just like, well, I'm not going to read my Bible, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, it's just stupidity. But I think we all get there, you know, at times because things aren't happening. Again, it goes back to what we think is timing and how we think God should be doing it, you know, and not understanding that, again, God understands the situation better than anybody and the timing better than anybody. And we just got to be patient in that. So obviously the more I went through it, the older I got. And this is what you've heard me say this before. And I'm just so desperately wish people would do this. You just have to settle in yourself that God is good. God understands, and that his word never fails. You have to settle those things. And if you will settle those things, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what you feel,
Right.
you're not going to be swayed. And I'm not going to tell you, like when I was in my 20s and 30s, no, I didn't. I probably had many times where I did not handle that the best. You know, the older I got, the more wise that I became, and you know, more mature that I became. I've handled that much better, you know, on that side. But just settling that and just knowing, okay, it doesn't matter what I feel right now. It doesn't matter how much I want to quit on this. It doesn't matter how much I want to complain about this. I know this is what I do know. God's word never fails. What he gave me is real. He is always faithful. And if he said it and he's planned it, it's set in stone. It's gonna happen. Period. And so there's just no question in my mind that is the case. So how I get there, you know, now the bottom line is I've got to stay faithful myself, because I think no matter how much God said it, you know, that if I don't stay faithful, it's not going to happen in my life. But if I stay faithful, you know, and I keep doing what it is that I'm supposed to do, then it's going to come to pass, and I just have to settle that. Now, is that difficult? Oh my goodness, is that difficult? Because you get so discouraged at times because you've got big dreams. You know, God's put this stuff on the inside of you, and it's like, God, how much longer? How much longer do I have to wait? God, when is this going to happen? I'm believing for this, and then what happens is, and I've done this, you start kicking doors in. And then you kick the door in, and the next thing you know, you find yourself in some place that God never intended for you to be, because you got tired of waiting, and you start kicking the door down, and then you get into this situation to where now God's got to take you, you know, he's got you, you know, you were on this path, but now all of a sudden you're way over here, and God's got to bring you back, you know, and so you just add a little bit of time, quite honestly, to what God's trying to do, because you're kicking the door down and you're trying to fix it, right? And I think that's where it's easy for all of us to get, rather than just saying, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you no matter how I feel, no matter how much I want to open that door and go through it. I am going to trust you. And, you know, if the younger you can learn that, you know, and accept that, the faster you're going to get to some of these things, you know, that God wants to do in all of our lives. You know, now there are some things I do understand, like I said, that I do believe even some of the stuff that God gave me when I was 17, I mean, I'm just now getting to the point where, you know, like I said, in the last maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever the case may be, that I actually feel like I'm mature enough to handle it. You know, prior to that, like I said, I probably wasn't for what I feel like God wants to do. You know, and I still believe He's going to do it. You know, you know, and again, it goes back to what you asked earlier. I'm 55 years old, and I guarantee you my brain is not shutting down. I don't care. I mean, I'm thinking I got 20 more years of ministry left in me, you know, maybe more than that, you know, hopefully Jesus comes back before then, but, you know, I'm going to keep moving. It's one of the things I appreciate about John Burke the most. 100%. I mean, 74 years old, I think he is now. And John's one of our staff members, if you don't know who he is. And I'm telling you, he works as hard as any of the 20-year-olds and moves and
winning silver in adult mixed doubles.
I cannot.
Pickleball
He's a monster
totally,
on the 9 square with the youth.
74 years old, and you can't keep up with him on the golf course when we're out walking, you know, that kind of stuff.
Dude's
and
cruising.
so, but again, you ask him, and he'll say this to you. He said, old is a mindset. And he said, and I'm not old. You know, and he's not. I mean, he might be old in number, but he's not old in his brain. So, you know, and I plan on being the same way. You know, I'm not stopping. I'm just not stopping. Got too much to do.
I think the only thing I would add to it is just practical. I think the spiritual part Pastor Brent covered so well. I would just say that waiting for anything, even something fun alone, is really hard. And I think when I look back at my life and I go, the hardest seasons, whether I'm believing for something or just trying to be an adult and do the right thing and make good choices, and the hardest seasons are the ones where you isolate yourself. And there's nobody around you. And I think there is something to getting alone with God in certain seasons, right? And in moments. But I also know that from the foundation of creation, God looked at man and said, it's not good to be alone. And that whether it's just your wife, your spouse, your but honestly, my favorite part of our Encounter Church staff, and we were joking about this earlier, but like laugh is a core value, and we live that out by hanging out with one another and spending time together. And when we do that, it makes the hard moments much more manageable to get through. It makes the seasons where there's doubt and unbelief and God, where are you? And why isn't this happening fast enough? When you're not waiting alone, it makes life a lot easier.
It's true.
And so on a practical side, who's your circle? Who's in your life? Who's in your corner? Do you have somebody in your life that you can just pour out those deep things? Like Pastor Brent said, and very few people know it, but there's a tight group that does.
Right.
And you protect that. And I'm not saying you just throw your dreams out there loosely, but there are people that when you're struggling, I know you have those people. I have those people. And when you have those people around you, it makes waiting a whole lot easier.
Right.
Well, and you want those people that he's talking about. Number one, if you're gonna share your God dream with somebody, it better be somebody that speaks faith into it and doesn't
100%.
speak, anything else but faith.
Yep.
If they're going to speak death into it, you don't want to share it with them.
Nope.
And so you've got to share that with people that are going to constantly surround you and encourage you and say, hey, God's got a call on your life. He's got a plan for your life. There's a big dream. And everything you told me, I believe God's going to do. And those people will encourage you. And I'm telling you right now, there's probably, I can count on one hand the number of people that know what God showed me when I was 17 years old. And that's purposeful because I don't want anybody to go, yeah, whatever, that kind of thing. Because you're always going to have those people around you and sometimes the people that you thought would be faithful, that would have faith in it are going to look at you, yeah, whatever, you believe what you want to believe, buddy, that kind of thing. But no, you want the person that's going to go, I believe that, I see that in you, I know God's speaking that to you. And then when you get in these moments like Rob is talking about, that circle gets around you and say, look, now come on, let's do this. You keep moving, you keep going. Don't give up on this thing. God's going to do this in your life. That's what you want. Those are the people you want to share it with, and be very, very cautious about who you share your God dream with.
And if you're the dream killer, let me just encourage you, don't be that guy.
Please.
No one likes that guy.
Nope.
Don't be that guy. No, in all seriousness, I think, like I said, waiting is hard. And so you need some friends like Garrett. Okay. I always compliment Garrett, but
so
when
kind.
we were trying to get our kids into school, and some of you may not live in Southeast Texas, but if you do, there's some schools here that getting your kid into a private school is like impossible. And we went at 3 in the morning,
3 a.m.
to get in line to get our kid in school. And needless to say, they didn't get in.
We were still late.
Yep, we were too late.
No, Grandma got there at 5 p.m. the day before and stayed the whole night.
Unbelievable. But all of that to say, like, I knew and Garrett knew, as cheesy as this is, like, going and waiting there all night or all morning, if you will, by ourselves is going to be miserable.
Yep.
And so what we do, we called each other and said, hey, if you're going, I'm going, let's go together.
Yep.
And Garrett picked me up that morning and we went and sat there and didn't get our kids in school. But like I said, who's your person that's sitting there in line with you while you're waiting?
It's exactly. Huge. I love it. I mean, even when I first got here, like the dream out loud mentality is huge. Like, have the safe place to share your dreams with. I agree, because there's been a couple moments where it's like, hey, what do you guys want to do? And you start sharing and you get the vibe, you're like, you're friends with me, but you don't, not that you don't believe it, but I'm getting the vibe that like, this is not the person to share this with. They're not going to breathe life into this. And I've got, again, a couple guys that I'm like, will kick me in the butt, be like, what's inside of you, get going, and you need those people. And so I think the biggest thing for those that are listening as well, like, find your circle, just like Rob said. That's going to be key to, because you don't want to get to the top by yourself. Take people with you. Take people on the journey with you. And as you're encouraging their dream, they're encouraging your dream, and you're building each other up, whether that's your spouse or that's a close friend. I think those are key things for you. And so, man, I love it, guys. It's incredible. Any final encouragement to just the people that have those dreams or anything like that?
Well, I think what you just said, I think is a good thing to think about, because here's the thing for me. If those things that God showed me when I was 17 begin to come to pass, well, not only is that going to come to pass for me, but it comes to pass for the people around me.
It's huge.
It comes to pass for the people that have been faithful to me. Because if those things begin to happen, everybody sitting in this room, it begins to happen for. You get that, right? On that side. So because what that is bigger than Brent Sparks. you know, it's big enough for all of us to be able to enjoy, all of us to have a part in, all of us to build the kingdom with. And I think that's really, really important that people understand. That's why being a faithful person in the circle is important, because when you believe for somebody else's dream to come to pass and you speak life into that and you're constantly push that, come on, let's do. Well, I'm telling you right now, there's a good possibility when that thing begins to happen in that person's life, you come right along with that. Why? Because you've constantly spoken into it, believed for it. And all of a sudden you find yourself in a place that you didn't intend to find yourself, because you're just trying to be an encouragement. Right. And so I just think, you know, we have to understand that side of it, that everything that God wants to do in all of us is so big. It's bigger than just us. You know, it's meant really to help everybody. Come on, let's be a part of this. Let's build the kingdom together in a way that we never thought we were going to get to do. You know, if
you don't have those people, pray for them. Pray that God would surround you with the right people, and that you'd be willing to share those one or two things that are you haven't shared with anyone else, but you know, you need someone to encourage that. They get that out of you and start speaking life into it, just like you said at the beginning. So
practical tips: get in a small group. That's where we find that in the local church.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a part of Encounter Church or another church, get in a small group. Join a dream team. If your church has a growth track or some type of membership class, go through it, because you're taking steps towards building your life around people.
Huge.
And that's the origin of that. Every person gets a circle by putting yourself in a position to meet people, to find people. And that God's plan was always to meet those people through the local church.
I love that.
Right.
So good, man. Hey, if you are in the area and you don't have a local church, we don't encourage you, man. Come out, come be part. We'd love to connect you with somebody and help you take your next step. That's huge to us. And we want to encourage a dream and help find someone to encourage you. If you don't live in the area, email us and we will help you find a good church in your local area. We know that that's a very important thing, to be in the body with people that are going to encourage you, that are going to lift you up and challenge you and champion the call of God in your life. And maybe you're watching this first time and you haven't even given your life to Jesus. We want to give you that opportunity as well. If you want to send us an email, send us a DM, or even call Encounter Church here in Groves, Texas. We'd love to walk you through that process and help you take that first step into the greatest life with the Lord, with Jesus. And so, man, guys, great conversations, man. And I hope those that are listening are encouraged by it. And
dream big.
Dream big. Let's go. Take people with you. So we'll see you next time on Brent and the Boys.